Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to be drawing 3 of my viewers' gacha characters. Also, I'm still recovering from being sick, so I might still sound a bit sick. Anyways, let's start drawing some gacha characters. This first character is by Zestiria. Their name is Jing Yi. Jing Yi likes drawing and clouds. His favorite colors are white and light blue. When drawing, he zones out a lot and keeps staring at the clouds, thinking how beautiful they are, having different forms. So let's start drawing Jing. So like with my other I Draw Your Gacha Character videos, I'm starting with the line art. I don't show the sketching phase, cause or else this video would get super duper long. And for the line art, I am using the rough pencil. I wanted the line art to have a bit of a softer feel, so instead of using the G pen, I am using the rough pencil tool. I find it just makes things a little bit softer and not quite as harsh. But it's kind of nice because it's not too textured. It has just a slight little bit of texture to it to make it a little softer. So it's still easy to fill in all of the colors. So my idea for this picture is that Jing is looking at all of the clouds, and I'm going to have him surrounded by tons of clouds. I decided to draw him in side view. Whenever I do these I Draw Your Character videos, I don't draw characters in side view very often. I feel like I do this because I feel like side view isn't like super dynamic or super exciting, I guess, because it's just side view. But since I don't do it very often, I thought I would do it for this picture, and I thought it'd be nice because we'd be able to see all of the background around him and everything. So after finishing the line art, I filled in the base colors, and now I'm starting to work on the sky. For the sky, I found a reference picture online, and the colors were going from a pink to a purple to a blue, and I really liked this color scheme, so I decided to go with that. And right now I am using the thin gouache brush, and I'm making a bunch of different cloud-like shapes. Some of the clouds were a little bit more pink and purple, and some of them were a bit more white, so I'm trying to just mix all of the different colors together to form the different cloud shapes. I actually had a lot of fun doing this. This might have been my favorite part, just because I was getting to mix around all of the different colors and be kind of painterly, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I pretty much only used the thin gouache brush for the clouds. I really like the thin gouache brush. I've been using it a lot recently, and yeah, I really like it. Lastly, I'm adding some highlights to the clouds with the soft airbrush, and then I blend them out using the smudging tool. And now I'm making them a little bit more warmer by adding some more yellow to the picture. So now I'm starting to shade Jing a bit more. I take some purple and set it to multiply and put it all over Jing to make him a little bit darker overall. And I'm starting by adding the shading to his skin and under his neck. For under his neck, I use like a reddish purpley color, and I also add a little bit of blue bounce light under his neck. I don't know, I often see this in other people's pictures and I like how it looks, so I thought I would try it out. Next, I'm adding a bit of highlight to his face, so I add it kind of on his cheek area, under his eye, on his lip, and on his chin and nose. And I also add some I'm gonna have to edit out a ton of coughs in this. I keep needing to cough, so I'm gonna be editing out a lot of coughs. Now I'm starting to shade his hair, and I wanted to try something a little bit different for this. So I start by adding some shading to the under part of his hair, and then I take the soft airbrush tool and I make a stripe along his head, and then I erase it towards the bottom part of the stripe, and I also erase it where the strands are kind of going through the shadow. I've been looking at pictures on Instagram and kind of on YouTube and watching different speed paints and stuff, and I saw someone do something similar to this and I wanted to try it out. I really like how it looks. It gives the hair this really soft kind of feel to it, which is the kind of feeling I was going for, and I feel like it looks kind of cool. I had a lot of fun with it. And lastly, I add some highlights to the hair. I just take a layer set to add glow and add little itty bitty dots for the highlights. And it's interesting how the hair looks really shiny even though I didn't add that much for highlights. I also add a little bit of blue bounce light just to make things a little bit more interesting. And lastly, I'm adding some more strand detail just to make the hair look not so empty. Now I'm starting to add the shading to his clothing. I add some dark blue shading and then I add some pinky shading towards the edges. This makes things look a little bit more warm as it moves towards the warm light. And I also add a little bit of pink lighting and some yellowy lighting and some shading on the turtleneck. Next, I am shading his eyes. For this installment of I Draw Your Gacha Characters, sometimes I try to copy the eyes of the Gacha characters, but this time around I kind of just felt like doing my own thing and drawing eyes how I usually draw eyes, or kind of playing around with how I draw eyes. I don't know, I just kind of felt like experimenting with eyes when I was working on all these pictures, so I kind of just let myself do whatever. Lastly, I changed the line art color to brown, and then I used some filters to kind of adjust the colors of the picture a little bit more. So here's the finished picture of Jing. I had a lot of fun working on this picture and all of the different soft colors of the pinks and the blues and the purples, and I had so much fun working on this guy. So thank you so much to Zestiria for submitting Jing. I had a lot of fun drawing him. This next character was created by Taylor. Their name is Lily. Lily likes the color yellow, bubble tea, their favorite flavor is strawberry, nature, and cake. So let's start drawing Lily. So for Lily, it was mentioned that she likes drinking bubble tea, and I thought this was kind of unique. So I decided to draw her drinking bubble tea. I was looking at many different references of bubble tea online. I never noticed how big the straws are for bubble tea, but I guess it makes sense because you gotta be able to drink the little orb things in the bubble tea. So I was like, whoa, they got really big straws. So I'm glad I looked at some references because I probably would have made the straw really small. Once again, like I mentioned, I'm kind of letting myself play around a little bit more with the Gacha characters. So Gacha characters often don't have eyelashes, but I decided to give her eyelashes because I really like giving girl characters eyelashes. And so yeah, I'm kind of trying to let myself play around a little bit more with the Gacha characters and not follow them so exactly. Like even with the hair, I kind of let myself play around with it a little bit more. But I'm still trying to stay true to the character and not deviate too far, but kind of put my own little spin on it and kind of let myself experiment. I have found my art has kind of lost its experimentation with doing all of these I Draw Your Character videos because I'm drawing other people's characters, so I don't feel like I can experiment as much. But I'm just trying to let myself experiment a little bit more with these videos. I had a lot of fun drawing her big pigtails. They are so big and swirly, and yeah, they were a lot of fun to draw. They were a little bit confusing because they have all of the different strands kind of swirling around each other. I tried my best to make sense of it, but they were a lot of fun. Her pose was kind of tricky to draw, especially her arm holding the bubble tea. I had quite a bit of trouble with that arm and that hand because it's kind of foreshortened a little bit. But I tried my best, and I am pleased with how the hand turned out. And how the cup turned out. I feel like the cup turned out pretty cute. But Lily is super duper cute. I really love her outfit, and like I mentioned, I really like her hair. So after finishing the line art, I filled in all of the base colors. And for the shading for Lily, things aren't gonna be super complicated. It's gonna be fairly simple. The light source is just kind of coming from above, and she has some pretty simple standard shading. For her skin, I use a dark peachy color for the shading. To deepen the shading, I tried something new. I duplicated my first shading layer and then I made it a darker red color, and then I erased the areas I didn't want the darker shading. And this was just a really quick way to deepen the shadows without having to basically redraw all of the shadows. I just duplicated my first shadows and then erased where I didn't want the duplicate layer. This was a really quick way to deepen the shadows, and I'll probably do it again sometime. Now I'm adding some highlights to her face, so I add some to her nose and around her jaw and also on her shoulders. Now I'm moving on to coloring her hair, and I wanted to try something different with the hair. I was really experimenting with hair in this video. So usually I have a band of highlight that goes around the head, but this time around, instead of putting a band of highlight, I put a band of shadow. So I'm taking a darker color and putting it where I usually put the highlight, and I make it a little darker towards the top edge and lighter towards the bottom edge. I've been seeing people shade hair like this, and I've been wanting to try it out, so I tried it out here. I also add a little bit of highlights by adding some stroke of a light color set to add glow, and I just slightly add some highlights to the hair. I don't add a bunch like I usually do, and I find by just adding a little bit of highlight, the hair almost looks even more shiny than when I add a ton of highlight. I don't know, I kind of really like the look of just adding a little bit of highlights. So yeah, I kind of just keep repeating the process that I did for the first part of the hair. So I add some shading to the pigtail wherever I would usually put some highlights. And yeah, I just kind of keep repeating that. The hair probably took me the longest to color just because there is a lot of her hair. Also, I really like her hair color. It's kind of unique. It's kind of a sandy blonde color. And I don't know, I just really liked it, and I really enjoyed coloring it. I never really shade hair colors like this. I also add a little bit of shading to the yellow on her outfit, so I use a darker yellow and just add shading wherever I see fit. And for her shirt, I applied shadow to all over the shirt and then erased where I didn't want shadow to be. Next, I'm moving on to her eyes, and for her eyes, I kind of wanted to play around with them a little bit. So I add some darker shading, and then I erase the shading in the middle, and I also add a line going around the pupil, and then I add some lighter green highlights in the bottom of her eye, and I also add a light green highlight in the bottom of her pupil, and then I add a white highlight and a smaller green highlight. I feel like her eyes turned out kind of cool. I tried to add a little bit more detail to them, and I feel like they look pretty. Lastly, I'm working on the bubble tea. I add a highlight to the cup, and I make the drink get darker towards the bottom just to make it look a little bit more dimensional, I guess. I also made the straw clear, but since she's slurping up the drink, it's pink. And I make the little orbs a dark pink. When I looked it up online, they're supposed to be brown or black, I guess, but I decided to keep them dark pink just because I liked them being dark pink. And lastly, I add a simple background. I use a pink gradient, and then I add a bunch of little circles in the same color as the gradient so they kind of fade in, and this kind of mimics the bubble tea. So here's the finished picture of Lily with her bubble tea. I had a lot of fun drawing Lily and the bubble tea. I've never drawn bubble tea before, so it was really fun. Thank you so much, Taylor, for submitting your character. Now on to the last character. This last character is by Miyustache. I hope I'm saying that right. This character is Megumi Splinter. He's a mysterious magic-wielding 24-year-old. Megumi often jokes around and acts like he doesn't know anything to make his friends annoyed for the fun of it. Although he acts playful, he can get serious from time to time. He's a tad cocky and arrogant. When you fight him, however, he's quite intimidating, often psychologically winning a fight before it happens. So let's start drawing Megumi. So for Megumi, I wanted him to look kind of mischievous and maybe a little evil, just a little bit, even though he's not. I don't know, he kind of just kept giving me this mischievous kind of vibe, so I wanted to give him kind of a devious kind of look. So he's kind of grinning creepily, and he looks kind of slightly angry, but kind of happy. I don't know, he has kind of that evil villain look about him. I know he's not a villain, but he kind of just kept making me think of Dementio from Super Paper Mario. That was for the Wii. I really like that game. I actually kept listening to the soundtrack while I was drawing this. But I thought maybe this character could be trying to make himself seem like intimidating, because like the person said, he kind of tries to win fights psychologically, so he's trying to be intimidating to win the fight, I guess. I don't know. I really like his mask. His mask is really cool. It was kind of confusing though, because I wasn't sure how to make the mask follow the shape of his face. So I tried my best. His hair was also really fun to draw. He has kind of like a ponytail, and then his hair kind of has a lot of floofiness to it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun drawing his hair. Once again, I didn't follow the Gacha character exactly. I did make his hair a tish shorter in the bang area, and I also made it a little bit more curvy swervy, and yeah, kind of fluffy. His hat was a little bit confusing. I wanted to make it kind of small and at an angle, because that's kind of how it is with the Gacha character. I tried my best. I always have a hard time with top hats. His staff is also really, really cool. In the email, it mentioned his staff is kind of just for decoration, and he kind of just holds it to make himself seem more powerful. But in this case, I decided to make it seem like it's kind of powerful. It's going to be glowing a little bit later on, because I thought that would look really cool. So after finishing the line art, I filled in all of the base colors, and right now I'm trying to figure out how I want the shading to look, so I'm just kind of roughly going in and planning how I want my shadows to be, and I'm not going to keep all of this. It was just kind of to get an idea of how I wanted the shadows. So I apply a ton of shadow all over him with a layer set to multiply, and now I'm going in and adding the shading to his skin. So I had some underneath his nose and around his eyes. I decided to give him a little bit of a crease underneath his eyes, because if you kind of squint, you get kind of a crease under your eyes, and I thought it'd help him look a little bit more creepy and a little bit more menacing. And then I applied shading all over his face, and now I am erasing it where I don't want the shadow to be. The orb is going to be casting some purple lighting on him, and so I set a layer set to screen, and I use a purpley color to add purple lighting to his face. Now I'm adding a little bit of shading to his hair. I do the same thing I did before, and I add a shadow where I usually add highlight, but I also add some purple highlights to his hair where the purple will be hitting it from the orb. And now I'm going in and adding that little bit of shadow to his hair. I didn't go super complicated with his hair. I kept it kind of simple, mostly because I wasn't totally sure how to make his hair flow. So I kept the shading kind of simple. Oh, it skipped a little bit. I don't know if I lost the footage. But I decided to add a yellow light coming from the left because I thought it'd be really cool. So I'm adding some yellow lighting to his hair, and I'm also going to add a little bit to his face and his coat. I was going to make it a blue lighting, but then I thought of the yellow lighting because of the yellow in his mouth and the yellow in his eye, and I thought it'd be a nice way to incorporate more yellow and also add a little bit of warmth to the picture. And I really like how the yellow looks. Next, I'm adding the shading to his mask. So I apply a bunch of shading and then erase it where I don't want it. So I erase some on his cheek because the light's kind of hitting the cheekbone area. And then I apply some shading around his nose because the light is making his nose cast a shadow. And I also add a little bit of shading around his eye just to make it look a little bit more dimensional. And it's kind of like that in the mask, so I don't know. I just thought it would look nice. I also add a little bit of yellow lighting to the mask. For his shirt, I wanted to add a bunch of wrinkles to it. I don't really know why, I just kind of wanted to. So I add some shading and then I erase the shading wherever I don't want it. And then I add some more shading to kind of define the wrinkles a little bit. And then I use the blending tool to blend out the shadows and kind of make the wrinkles the shape I want them to be. I figured maybe the coat was kind of bunching up the shirt a little bit and kind of causing wrinkles. Next, I'm shading his coat a little bit more. I just add a little bit of purple lighting and a little bit of yellow lighting. I also add some purple lighting and yellow lighting to the hat to help define the shape a little bit more. And there goes a car. Next I am working on his eye, and the Gacha character kind of had a pattern in the eye, but I couldn't see the pattern very well even when I zoomed in a lot. So I decided to make his eyes just kind of standard. I make his pupil a dark brownish color, and then I add a line around the pupil for some detail. And I also add some highlights in his eyes, kind of following the shape of the detail I drew earlier. And then I add a purple highlight in his eye, and I thought this would look kind of cool because the orb is creating the purple highlights. So yeah, I added some purple in his eye. And now I'm moving on to his staff, and I was really excited to work on his staff and the orb. So I add some purple lighting to the staff because, like I've mentioned, the orb is going to be emitting a purple light. And I want the orb to look super duper shiny, so I start by applying a dark color, and then I erase the dark color in the middle and around the edges. And then I set a layer to add glow and add some glowing light in the middle and around the edges. And I also add some white highlights. I add a highlight kind of going all around it, and then I lower the opacity. This will just kind of make it look shiny around the lower half of the orb. And then I add some little white highlights to make it look shiny. And I repeat the same process for the smaller orb that's above it. And then I have another layer, and I set that to add glow, and I put add glow all over the orb. I add more purple lighting to Megumi, and this makes the orb look super duper shiny. Now things were feeling a little bit plain, and I remembered I had these effects I downloaded a super long time ago, and it makes kind of a circle of this intricate pattern, and I make that go all around the orb, and I make it a purpley color. And then I duplicate the layer and set it to add glow and lower the opacity, and this kind of just gives a cool effect all over the orb. I also felt like the background was kind of plain, so I was trying to think of a way to add some more interest to the background. I used another one of those effect brushes, and I just put a ton of the pattern in the background and then lowered the opacity. This just kind of helped fill in the background a little bit more. So here's my finished picture of Megumi. I had so much fun working on this picture. It was kind of fun working with this villainous kind of tone. And I had a lot of fun working with the different purple and yellow light sources. And the character overall was just really fun to draw. And here are the other pictures I also drew in this video. Thank you so much to everyone for submitting your characters. I had so much fun drawing all of them, and I hope you like the pictures. Anyways, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!